let me trace back. How far back does the relationship go?
Well, no, I actually didn't meet the president until he appointed me as Undersecretary for Environment in 1996. And it was through the Secretary, Vic Ramos.
Pero maano na, last 2
So,
years na ng kanyang
3 years. I was there from beginning of 96, so 2.5, 96, 97, until the end, so May 1998.
No earlier interactions?
No, not really. Only, only in a general sense, being Defense Secretary and I always did a lot of work on environment. So even in his early years sa term niya, with Secretary Alcala, yung first environment secretary niya,
right.
I did a few things there that required Malacanang, but no real engagement with the president himself. It was only when I became USEC kasi maraming problems na ako yung in charge na personally interested si president, diba? So like mining, climate change, those things, he hands-on siya. Hindi siya micromanager pero hands-on siya.
Okay.
So I got engaged with him with that.
Tell me about the interactions then. What were the interactions then?
Well, on mining, the president wanted to grow the mining industry in the Philippines. But in a responsible way. So he had a new law passed, the Mining Act of 1995, invited quite a lot of mining companies to come to the Philippines, and then it got stuck because of a big disaster, the Marcopper disaster, which was a historical thing, right? It was the disaster happened because of things that were not done properly by the company and even by the government, much earlier than the Ramos administration, but it affected the whole mining sector. So I was asked by the Secretary of the Environment, and that had the support of the President, to be the front person to deal with mining in the Philippines. I came from an NGO environmental background, so I was very had credibility on environmental issues, and on issues related to people and communities. So I took charge of that. The president paid attention to that because he wanted to be sure that, in fact, if we did mining, it was done properly. So I together with the secretary or with the authority of the secretary, we changed the rules, made it stricter, so that Marcopper would never happen again. That was the idea. But the interaction with the president was very interesting because converge dun sa floor contemplation. Earlier 95. Right. But the president's ratings, performance ratings dove, went really low, almost negative during the time. So one of the responses of the president was to actually go to the province every week, the cabinet meetings. And I was the frequent, whenever my secretary wouldn't make it, ako yung pinapadala niya. For the very simple reason that in every province that the president went to, mining was an issue. The church always raised it. Ito yung problema namin, mining, di ba? So ako yung pangbato niya. Now, NCU sa VIñA is trying to fix that and it will never happen again. So I had a very positive experience because the president was pro-mining but was also very supportive of efforts to make it responsible. Diba? And that for me, and sustainable. Well, sustainable kasi we don't use that word sustainable for mining kasi it depletes. It cannot really be sustained, diba? Because over time you lose all of your minerals if you use it, diba? So we use it more. We use the term more responsible mining, which means to use the money properly. You make sure the environmental aspects taken care of. You make sure that the local people, indigenous peoples, local government benefit from the mining. And the president was quite clear about that. Hindi to just mining for its own sake, or the companies getting whatever they want, but you fix it so that it's responsible in the sense environmentally, socially, and economically for the country. No? And that was a very good attitude I saw in the governance of President Ramos. No, na, yung hindi black and white, di ba? Hindi black and white, but you try to achieve a consensus among the major actors and try, yun sinasabi niyang win-win but which was you try to make sure that the interest of everyone was met, di ba? Even if not fully, di ba? And so people might not be totally satisfied with the solution, but we did make that effort. I mean, the president was always clear on that to us that worked for him na siguraduhin mo na una nakausap mo lahat, yung tinatawag niyang complete staff work, di ba? Kailangan nakausap lahat, kailangan na-review lahat, kailangan lahat na everyone that has to have a say should have a say, di ba? And when you decide, you try to accommodate almost everyone, if not everyone at all, di ba? And I like that kasi kahit na very partisan ako, kasi strong
you were coming in from a
NGO,
very
strong environmental advocate,
diba?
strong social justice advocate, and very strong policy positions. But I also like it a lot that the instruction of the president is you can be true to yourself, but you have to convince others to come with you. Kasi that's the best way of governance. Diba? That you don't alienate anyone. Diba? That's really the best way. So even politicians, I learned that I have to respect politicians. Diba? The president will not accept you, diba? Not respecting politicians, diba? But doesn't mean that they control, diba? Doesn't mean that you have to. I mean, many times the president would uphold us against politicians' interest or what the politicians wanted. But you have to at least respect. You have to at least listen. You have to go through that process. And I like that because when you want to do good things in government and radical things, especially progressive things, diba? You're going to be attacked constantly. Diba? And that's why the best approach to do it is must go on the offensive first, not in the negative sense, but bring them into the fold. Bring the attackers, diba, into the fold and engage with them and see what they really want, what they really need, and accommodate them that as far as you can.
That took a lot of political will as well, Lalo na yung I mean, he did it with mining, he did it with several other sectors of the economy, telecom,
diba?
That he
bold
realized
but
diba?
Accommodating.
He realized that it was controlled by a very, very small clique, and that basagin natin yan. It's leveled. I mean, the term was what? Level the playing field.
Yeah, exactly. So when you level the playing field, also it's not that you're gonna destroy, diba, the ones that are necessarily already ahead there, but you just want to make sure that may fair level of playing field, diba?
Some other. It was also during your term, your stint, tour of duty, that Boracay was first closed.
Yes. Although we didn't close it the way the administration did it, we closed it. We did it resort by resort and facility by facility because that's really the legal way to do it properly to give due process. No? But that's another, the president wanted to make sure that when we do these very bold things, that you bring in the stakeholder to be enthusiastic about it, or at least to do something, to agree to do it, but rather than so. But you have to be tough. You have to be clear about what you want, and you shouldn't back down, diba? But at the same time, you have to listen on what the right approach would be to get people to come in. We did the same thing, less coverage, but very political. Dun sa Laguna Lake, kasi ako yung ako yung in charge ng Laguna Lake for LLDA, but ako yung in charge from the DENR side kasi attached agency siya, di ba? So I front line ako doon. And basically, we basically dismantled a lot of fish pens, many of whom were owned by generals, former generals, friends of the president, etc. But the president's backed us up, diba? On that, basta lang yung you again do it properly, and the president was always insisting about it. You have to do it by the book, in accordance with law, but also very important, you do it fairly. Huwag kang mag-favor ng anyone, di ba? And that's what we did in Laguna. General Santos, South Cotabato, land use naman doon. Ang daming land speculation doon.
Yes.
And the president was under pressure to give all sorts of people, families, companies. I mean, big company was there trying to land back. But the president wanted it to be done properly. So we ended up doing a moratorium for all of that, so that a land use plan will be done first. Diba? So the president liked solutions like that kasi rational siya, hindi siya yung you're not just, kasi ang hirap yung you have to say yes to this, no to this, yes to this. No? So we did it as a blanket way to parang may rational
Nakatulong ba yung engineer mindset niya?
Yeah, of course. I think the engineer and the military mindset help. No, I mean, well, it's still the surprise part for me, but then in retrospect is understandable. Is this approach of Team Philippines, diba? Now we are all in this together, and you actually reach out even to your enemies, to your detractors, to that, I think that we've lost that. I think from ERAP to Arroyo to Pinoy to Duterte, diba? Every one of our leaders ruled from a divided, in fact, purposely implemented a divisive strategy to stay in power and to do things, diba? Diba yung to define themselves, even hindi lang ang malungkot dyan is, in my view, I think sa election ginawa yun era, si GMA wala siyang choice kasi the way she took power was really divisive and people were divided. But Pinoy and Duterte had a chance to also do that. Even if you campaign on the divisive, and ended up divisive, you can unite. I mean, the President Ramos was, the election was divisive. It was a contentious election. So there was even a big protest by Miriam. But when he governed as president of all, and that's what I think we've lost. I mean, and I think it's very important to capture that because that was really the mark of that presidency. Even in the reaching out to the communists, to the Moros, in Nurmiswari.
22-23%. Of it was a plurality.
Yes.
He saw to it na I am president
of all. That's what you should do. Kaya, lost opportunity yung kay Pinoy, lost opportunity yung kay Duterte because they had 38, even Estrada, they had 38-40% of the votes. I mean, plurality then, but nearer the majority. Di ba? So, ang dali-dali na lang kunin yung majority, di ba? But I think si President Ramos saw that, yung insight na yan. And I think that in retrospect, that's because of, I think, the experience as a soldier, di ba? Yung the fact that people actually die in conflict, di ba? Is something that I think the leaders of soldiers understand is something you don't want to make a rule. I mean, so govern that way. I mean, it wasn't an issue to him where I have an anecdote about that, diba? When the provincial cabinet meetings began. Mabigat yun, every week yun. And you wake up at 2 in the morning, no, and ride, syempre, lower naman all the time, sub-cabinet lang ako, so I ride this UE helicopters na Vietnam, di ba?
Flying coffins.
You know what they call flying. So I used to do that, di ba? But my secretary said, you should go because the president should get to know you because, people are saying that you're communist, diba? Which I'm not, never have been. But I've always been progressive in all my advocacies, diba? But, syempre, alam mo naman, magiging intriga so niloloko ko na president, pag ito yung aking resident communist, diba, but it was never an issue na being progressive, taking, di ba, a stand in favor of the environment all the time, of people all the time. He liked that. In fact, he called himself the Green President, di ba? Alam niyo, kasi we had one big project in Pangasinan that we did not approve, the Bolinao cement power plant, di ba? And the president was perceived to favor it, but we didn't really know because he made sure that we're not influenced by whatever he thought, diba? Speaker de Venecia was strongly for it. Of course, the president's sister naman, the late Senator Leti, was against it, diba? So the politics of Pangasinan was complicated on that issue. Right. I mean, but when we finally decided and recommended to the president na hindi talaga siya pwede from an environmental point of view, the president just said, okay, if that's the case, then we just have to tell that investor you have to find somewhere else. Right. And did not pressure us, did not push back na baka pwede ma-accommodate, baka pwede mag-win-win, mga ganyan. Kasi alam mo, yung win-win, you can do that in many cases, but sometimes you have to make hard choices, di ba? Right. Hindi naman pwedeng, in some cases, you don't make. So in that case, you have to make a hard choice, hindi talaga siya pwede. President was very supportive. And after that, kasi lumabas sa Time Magazine, the Green Tiger, yun. That's kept on, especially when he sees me, or Yusek Ganapin was my other colleague na strongly environmental dun sa DENR. Of course, Vic Ramos was very pro-environment. Palagi niya sasabihin, we are the Green Tiger of Asia, di ba? And I'm very proud of that. Kasi diba, the other Green Tigers were Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Thailand. And he was saying, we're the next tiger, but we're a Green Tiger.
Tell me your feeling about working with all the controversy that environment issues bring in, that you knew he had your back.
Well, because he would write us, he was famous for writing notes,
Yeah.
over newspaper articles, newspaper items, and send it to us. I mean, and whenever there were environmental issues that would come up, he would always put there, solve that. He, as I said, on the mining issue, there were complaints from the mining industry that we were too strict. But he understood that even if he was pro-mining, he understood that if you were not strong on the environment, you would not have any mining project allowed in the Philippines because the people would not accept it. Diba? And of course, it could also lead to disaster. And I mean, so time and again, I mean, I cannot think of an issue where when we had to deal with environmental issues, the President Ramos, took the other side. Diba? It was always supporting us to be able to do the right thing. And I'm very happy because, in government, you kind of feel you lose some and win some, diba? I actually felt that I won 90%, a lot, diba? I mean, and on all the major issues.
Share with us your insights into his brand of management. I mean, you already mentioned CSW, that he insisted on cross-sectoral, multi-sectoral consultations. Ladakh.
Yeah, I was the
Di ba,
representative in
di ba?
Ladakh. Yeah,
Ikaw, oh.
yeah. So you had the opposition, you had the Senate and the House. Di ba? I was there when we the tax reform, di ba? The first tax reform, sin taxes, no, were done. I mean, and it was an incredible experience. Seeing. So first of all, for the management style, complete staff work was a minimum requirement, di ba? Everyone had to do their homework, di ba? You do not make decisions without knowing the issue and all the different aspects of the issue, which meant you had to talk to everyone that was involved. All the agencies had to have a say. Politicians have to have a say. NGOs have to have a say. Your international partners have. That's very important for him because he globalized the Philippines. I mean, he made us. That's why he supported all the efforts for us to negotiate agreements. For example, like climate change. That's my own experience. So he allowed the team that we put up together under Secretary Ramos to have as many government people as necessary. He did not see this as junkets, but he saw this as an important investment on the country's future. And I mean, so you have to bring in people, bring in stakeholders, generate your options, what I call mutual gains options or win-win options. Financing was very important. You paid attention to budgets. That's really critical. I mean, you just don't, di ba, papogi points. It's not. No. And then communication. He paid attention to that and made sure that we paid attention to communication. I mean, that was one of the things he liked with me. I think he liked with my secretary because that may press ano din yung secretary ko, may dating collegian editor yung secretary ko. So he knew how to communicate. I mean, and so that we had to put together very well.
How important to you that he had a roadmap, right? A vision, Philippines 2000?
That was what was attractive, and it attracted people to come to join the government or to come home to the Philippines. And then we had a very good balikbayan, di ba, experience when people came back, with people coming back to join the government or coming back to join the private sector, because you had this long-term view. I mean, of course, in retrospect, I would have suggested a longer time frame because you really cannot change the country in 10 years' time, di ba? I think he wanted to do as much as he could up to 1998 when he was going to leave the presidency, and so that's why 2000 was the and also the millennium. So I understand that, di ba? But if you look at all the substance of that, di ba, that was really just laying the foundations for what should be Philippines 2020 at the time, or a longer version. But it was very good. I mean, I know I think it's Professor Talisayon. I mean, Crispin, you must have interviewed him. Crispin Talisayon. No. Anyway, worked with General Almonte, who developed a lot of the sort of the futuristic, the thinking around that. I mean, and that's really good because with technology changing things very fast, diba? At the time, we were positioned to do that, to adapt to that.
Other areas of governance, the use of foreign relations, for example, as a tool for pushing Philippine interests, ASEAN, APEC.
Yeah, my concrete experience is with climate change, because it was during his presidency that we negotiated the Kyoto Protocol. And the Philippines was one of the most influential in that negotiations. Like if you say there are 10 countries or 5 countries that are most influential, the Philippines is one of the 5. In fact, President Bill Clinton, in the last 3 days of the conference in Kyoto, called up President Ramos to get his support for some ideas that the U.S. wanted to bring. President Ramos was very proud of that. And he actually sent me a note. Bill Clinton, after that, so Bill Clinton called him, and then after the conference was over and we had an agreement, Bill Clinton actually wrote a note to him to thank him, and he actually sent me a copy of the note.
Wow.
Because he said he knew I was the chief negotiator of the Philippines in the Kyoto Protocol. As I said, he as a president, he understood. He made sure he understood the issue of climate change. He clearly saw that this was a priority issue for the Philippines, for the future of the Philippines. Gave us that we're negotiating it for him in the DENR at the time, wala pang Climate Change Commission. It was the DENR and the Department of Foreign Affairs gave us this very broad mandate of making sure our interests are met, while making sure that our relationships with other countries are strengthened. No? But very clear that your main job is to help secure the future for the Philippines through a good climate change agreement. That is important because within the government, we also had a debate. The obstacles to an agreement to climate change in 1997 were the OPEC countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc., who are very important countries for us diplomatically. We have many OFWs there. We get our oil from them. No? But the president was very clear to us that if there's a conflict between our OFW, sort of our OPEC relationships and the national interests, very direct with climate change, you choose the national interest. No? So to be able to do that, yeah, it's a hard choice. But the instruction was to be smart about it. It wasn't about fighting the OPEC countries. It was being very smart about it, developing the alliances to get what we wanted from the agreement. No? So the president allowed us to have a fairly large delegations in these conferences. I mean, these are conferences involving 5,000 to 10,000 people, officials, no? With around 30, 40, 50 meetings happening at any given time. If you go there with 2 or 3 people, like 2 from DENR, you'll be just lost and you won't have any impact. Right? So the president allowed us to have 30, 40 officials, and then there were NGOs that we were allowed to bring into the delegation of 50 to 60. So in Kyoto we were 60 or 70. Very good, very effective. That's why we were very successful in Kyoto.
He helped reshape din actually yung foreign posturing ng Pilipinas. I mean, if I remember at that time, he was a recognized voice for group of
77 in China. Yeah.
Developing.
Yes, precisely because
why Mr. Clinton gave him a call.
Yeah, exactly. The other countries saw that we had a president that understood globalization, understood the challenges that the international community was facing, saw strategically how global issues can be used to further your interests, even in your own country.
Right.
And so, it was just a pleasure to do that. We were so respected during the time by other countries because of that.
One interview, he actually told us that he was proud to hold a Philippine passport whenever, wherever he was traveling at about that time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was uh, we were very influential at that time. No? Ang maganda kasi sa atin is that while we have strong positions, including equity positions and the fact that we're a developing country, we're also open to new ideas. No? And the president was very, he himself implemented a couple of really important ideas at the global that resonated globally. No? Dito, we were one of the few countries that created a Council for Sustainable Development. Philippine, that's forgotten kasi future government, for a while it was there, but finally it died. I suppose a natural death. No, I mean, up to Pinoy it was still there up to the end actually. No, I don't think it even meets. But during his time, it was alive. No?
Very strong.
Imagine he chose his economic planning minister, secretary, Shell Habito, to chair a council of sustainable development, no? And gave it support all the way. And it was a very cabinet level plus may NGO siya na counterpart, di ba? That was very unique. I mean, and you had a president that took ideas globally. And was willing to experiment with it here, no?
Too far ahead for his time.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that he was the right person at the time, diba? And for me, the great challenge has always been why we were not able to sustain that, diba? Nothing to do with the president himself, diba? With FVR himself. It's more why were we not able to sustain the advantages, the successes that we had at the time. I mean, and that's a challenge. That's a perpetual challenge of Philippine governance. It's not upward trajectory. It's a cyclical trajectory,
Yeah.
and we need to figure that out. I mean, how to solve that.
This is the academic in you now.
Yeah, but also because I'm a governance practitioner, I see that all the time in the transitions, diba? I saw that early in the Estrada administration. But the one thing about President Ramos, though, is even if he's a very strong Democrat, you never imagine staying beyond unless there's a constitutional amendment, beyond staying beyond 6 years, diba? Or running again, diba?
Let me ask you about that. I mean, there was, if you remember, there was Pirma and there was People's Initiative.
Yeah.
But eventually he backed down.
Yeah, I guess
there were people
because it would be divisive. I don't think this is in line with his view that, diba, yung Team Philippines, no? And it would be divisive to push it unconstitutionally, because at some point, diba, and in fairness, the same thing happened with GMA. At some point, the Supreme Court weighed in and said, you cannot do this, diba? Or you cannot do it this way. And the President Ramos was the ultimate Democrat. I mean, it's quite a lot to say, but it's true that the most democratic president we have is the one who came from an authoritarian culture professionally.
The soldier.
The soldier, the military official that, but I would say, and then if you also ask me about what the leadership style is, that's what we call in leadership studies a servant leader. I think even as a military man, he might order you to do things, but from the people I've met that work with him, they love the man, and they're loyal to the man, and because the man took care of them and was a good person to them, certainly to me, FVR was very affectionate. I was one of the youngest, probably the youngest of in the sub-cabinet. I was like in the early 30s when I was in Undersecretary. I mean, so up to now, it's something he's always proud of, that he appointed an Undersecretary, a very young Undersecretary, and is very affectionate because of that. I mean, so servant leadership kasi is about incentivizing, enabling, inspiring people, di ba, to lead, not ordering them to do things, or not thinking that just by ordering them they will get to do things, but you order them, in such a way that they're actually inspired to do it, di ba? It's not an external pressure for them. That was the kind of leadership that you had with President Ramos. I mean,
Tell me about the personal touch. I mean,
well, as I said, for me,
parang ama ba? Or
yeah, sa akin, definitely. He very affectionate, si President. Up to today, when he sees me, he's like, he probably sees me also, or maybe sees me as at the time, as one of his younger lieutenants, and I mean, that he had to work with, all those, or military aides that he had to work with. No? But he was very, very good, very kind, soft-spoken, very appreciative. That's important. Kasi, when
the
you
affirmation.
well,
you're
because
doing
the
it right,
job that you
Yeah.
do, jobs that you do for a president like President Ramos are challenging, difficult,
Always.
risk-taking, di ba? It was very important for me, so I took a lot of risk, di ba? Physical and political risk in doing the right thing, di ba? Very important for me to know that I had my president's back, di ba? That nobody would be second-guessing me. Now, of course, I know I had to deserve that, which means I had to do complete staff work. I had to be consensus building, di ba? And so I did all of that. But down at the end of the day, di ba, no matter how good you are, you will still have detractors, di ba?
Yeah.
You will still have criticism. You will still have people not completely happy. It was very important to me to know that President Ramos always back us up when politicians complained, when we knew that. We knew that he didn't have to tell us that. Many times he won't even tell us that. Sometimes he would tell my secretary, sometimes he would tell, but rarely. But we knew that because people. Well, people told me all the time, we go straight to the president, and I said, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead.
Under our system, and you're allowed to go straight to the president.
And he'll just point you back to me.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And they would soon come back and say, well, yeah, we have to deal with you.
He had the knack for he had the knack for picking the right people.
Yeah.
I mean, take a look at the composition of the cabinet. None of the really flamboyant or in the spotlight personalities, but all of them heavyweights in their respective fields.
Yes. Now, I'm very proud that I actually didn't know the president politically. I didn't have any single political backers to be appointed. Even my own secretary, I wasn't close to him at all. Of course, we're in the same field, so he's noticed me. He's seen me in conferences. And then when he became secretary, and there was an opportunity to hire another undersecretary, he right away approached me, based purely on my expertise. And when he went to the president, and I know that it's an anecdote, say, I had a good CV. Went to Yale, part top-notcher, expert in different things, etc. And the president just looked at it and said, "Where do you find these people? Of course, we will appoint him, without any political backing."
But that's exactly it. He always threw a.
Just for the best, you have to do it for the best person in the job. Yeah.
And regardless of whether he knew the person or the nominee personally or not.
Yeah.
It was really, can he do the job? Is he right for it?
Yeah. No, at least in the field that I was, and the people I work with, so I worked a lot with the undersecretaries, for example, diba? Brought in quite a lot of young undersecretaries also. The first to actually do that. Because that's the other thing he believed in young people. I mean, he really believed in young people.
That's the commander in him, I guess, ano, na,
Yeah.
find the right and bring them in.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just all about, the economy or making it, but tell me about the social reform dimension of
I was gonna
of
say
his
that
governance.
part of so I was heavily involved in the social reform agenda because of indigenous peoples. I was the key person, one of the key persons, certainly champions. Because I came from that background. But if the president was probably the most pro-business president we've ever had. I mean, I have to say that. The most pro-globalization president we've ever had. But the president also understood, President Ramos also understood, that people are going to be affected by this, that business is not all, all positive, all good, all, or globalization is just all benefits. So he was very clear in his mind that if we are going to do this, we have to be inclusive, and the benefit to be inclusive, and that means you have to change the rights, the power equation in the Philippines, no? And make sure that your basic sector have rights. And that was what the social reform agenda was all about, led by the DAR secretary, Secretary Garilao, yes, Ernie Garilao, and Ernie was, of course, came also from the same background as me in the NGO movement, more with agrarian reform and farmers. Even that, Ernie wasn't really necessarily a friend of FVR, but he was the best person for the job. I mean, because of his experience, and then he led the social reform agenda, and we made sure all the different sectors were brought into the decision-making process. And what were the priorities? So, for example, indigenous peoples, the priorities were rights, and that's why we ended up the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. That was during his time. President Ramos said you have to support all the way. We were lucky that we also had a senator, Juan FVR, who was very who steered that law to its final adoption. But it's a good example because of the the backgrounds of the president coming in. He had, because of the experience of insurgency, where the insurgency is strongest up to now, unfortunately, in indigenous people's areas, because they're the ones most oppressed. No? Right. He understood that we have to secure ancestral domain rights, secure identity rights of indigenous people. So that came out of the social reform agenda. Right. Of course, that we later on institutionalize the social reform agenda in the NAPC, National Anti-Poverty Commission. I mean, to make sure that the basic sectors always have a say. It's gone moribund now again, not very effective, but at least you have that mechanism.
Peace and development, one without the other cannot proceed. And
yes, he understood that. President Ramos understood it. I was involved in two. I was involved in the MNLF negotiations and in the NPA, the CPP NPA negotiations. And my instructions, or our instructions, from the way I see it, was you have to close the deal and find a way, to accommodate what's needed without violating the Constitution. Very important yun for the President. The President,
klaro sa kanya.
Klaro yun. Diba? So, we did that with the MNLF negotiations and got I think at that time the right law, the right agreement, sorry. unfortunately, when it went to Congress, nagminanggal ng Congress.
Yeah.
Yung what was so gave Ms. Wari an excuse later on that it didn't work because Congress did not do what it was supposed to do.
Even if we squander this.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, of course, it's also about its own actions, no. But it gave him an excuse. That's important because you shouldn't give them an excuse, diba? That's why it's very important. This latest assertion with the Bangsamoro that the MLF accepted this and that it's generally a good law. No? I mean that, no? But I think that the lost opportunity yung CPP NPA just ran out of time, no? Kasi the president was also really interested in doing it. I mean, in getting that agreement. I was in the panel of Ambassador Howard D, who was in charge of negotiating with the NDF, diba? And a very interesting approach that we took, no? I think there's support of the president, which was even without an agreement pa, you solved na the conflict, diba? You solved the conflict already. So that when you come to the agreement, you don't have many outstanding issues anymore, and you can concentrate on the most important things that have to be done in a peace agreement. So he was truly committed to peace. I mean, again, that's the ironic part, right? That you have a soldier trained for war, but actually, you know, somebody who's desperate for peace, really would go an extra mile for peace. No?
Stop the firing. But 2 out of 3, you know? An agreement with the MNLF, an agreement with the RAM.
Yeah, that's what's important, of course.
Sayang, hindi lang
And even the MLF, the agreement was an agreement to a framework to do negotiations after the MNLF was done, was also achieved.
Hindi lang na. And then, with RAM, ano? Military adventurists. Did he have enough time? Mukhang hindi, ano?
No,
talaga
no. Diba yung because just there were so many things that still had to be done, diba? There's always that question whether 6 years is enough, diba? Some want diba? Well, there's the famous, diba, the saying is 4 years is too short for 6 years is too short for the good president, too long for a bad president, diba? So that's why some would say 4 years, 4 years. I actually think 5 years better, because I think you need at least 10 years to really have a longer term impact, diba? And solidify your legacy. But even the 6 years, I'm very proud of, for example, our work in the environment, indigenous people's rights, as controversial as it was, the mining, sustainable development. 20 years after we left, 21 years after we left government, I say 80% of that we left behind is there.
It's still there.
Yes, because it was solid. The president, having himself come from the bureaucracy, wanted to make sure that what we do also permeated in the bureaucracy, and we're not resented by the bureaucracy. And we're embedded in laws, in rules and regulations. So mahirap na yan pag na-embed na siya lahat. Pag na-embed na siya na lahat, mahirap na siyang alisin, tanggalin. It can take a really long time, very strong effort to do it, diba? And most of the time wala namang interest yung next in line, next so I'm very proud because it's still that, diba? I mean, and that's because of the man, our leader then, thought in terms of generations, diba? Thought in terms of long term, diba? Not just a short term victory, but a long term victory that you can sustain over time.
Strategic.
Yeah.
Strategic.
Yeah.
So so building blocks, he laid the foundation. So is that on the reverse side of the coin? Was that something that the succeeding administrations, or where the succeeding administrations dropped the ball? That it was
For
not-
sure. But in particular, for me, the dropping of the ball is, it's natural that people want to do things that they are more interested in. So I'm not gonna blame them for that. But I would say that the dropping of the ball has been mainly on the project of nation building and the project of unifying the country. Because I think we are going to be doomed to this perpetual repetition if we don't get united. So even after we left in government, President Ramos still government, I followed the speeches. And that's a constant theme, diba? Team Philippines. Team Philippines. We're on one boat together. Diba?
Yeah.
And I think that's the one where people have really dropped the ball.
We forgot that sense of unity.
It's not just forgot. I think for me, our political leaders, especially our presidents after FVR, they use division as a political strategy to win power and to stay in power. It's not about. It's not that. I mean, it's not that they are diba, yung directly choosing what we have. It's that I can stay in power if I actually attack other people. I can stay in power if I don't give funds to, let's say, people in the opposition that I don't like. No?
Isolate them.
Yeah. So, if that's the case, we'll end up just repeating whatever we have been repeating. That's not bad. That's not good for us. So the legacy is about, because it's 20 years later, and I mean, there's two levels of the legacy: that which is still there and survives, no? And many of what we did, as I said, survives, no? And thrives even during this time. So that's part of the legacy. But that's not the deeper legacy. Is the way you govern, diba? And the example that you gave. That's a deeper legacy. And for me, because I've seen it again and again in our country, that we are never condemned to always just have to accept bad things.
Yeah.
That at some point there's always a chance for renewal, a chance to do better. Diba? Because you had a time when this happened, diba? And if you're able to capture that in projects like this, diba? In books, but most of all in the experience of people that lived it, diba? So for me, the legacy is that when I look at the Philippines now and I see it so divided, look at the Philippines now and I see people excluded, when I look at the Philippines now and all the challenges we face, but then I look at the FVR legacy and I tell myself, oh, we're capable of great things. This is just temporary.
Can be done.
What I'm seeing now, the bad things I'm seeing, it's just temporary. It's the and by the way, as I said, I mean, I have I say that all the governments of the FVR had these major failures precisely because of not bringing people together, no? And because I know that it is possible to bring people together with the right governance. Then we would at some point be able to renew again as a country and much better off.
You're an optimist.
Yes, because I've lived a long time too, and I think President Ramos is an optimist too. I've lived a long time. There's been ups and downs in this country, but I've seen many ups as well, and I've never seen a bad moment to last. A bad moment can be followed by good moments, and it's important when that happens to remember the other good moments.
Yeah.
So for me,
To build on it.
and I don't know how it will come about at some point, we will have a renewal again, di ba? And then when we ask for that renewal, what should inspire us? What should we do? We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Andun na,
Don't have-
meron na.
well, yeah. I can what I just said about that leadership style, di ba?
Yeah.
Yan lang, kahit yun lang complete staff work, consensus building, bring everyone together, so that you find win-win solutions. Kahit yun, just these two things together in terms of governance, di ba?
Pwede na, ano?
Is enough actually to change the country for the better.
How do you stay connected with FDR over the years?
Well, over the years, we
Did you
in
stay
social-
pa ba? Did you stay pa in government after?
No, I left. I left kasi I went to the States actually to work there for 3 years,
And then,
and then I came back. After I came back after 8 years, but
how do you stay connected?
well, during gatherings, but we sometimes engage him in to inspire like groups that I have been part of. So in Ateneo de Manila, UP Law, we invited him to be our speaker in our UP Law graduation. Not graduation, UP Law reunion.
Homecoming.
Our homecoming, our 25th year homecoming. We asked him to come actually to give a special speech, which is very, very well attended and very, very nice. I follow his writings. He sends me when obviously still interested in climate change, so he sends me those things. He quotes me also, so that has been something we've done all these years.
You came in early 96 ka mo,
Yeah,
ano?
January.
Kaya lang 2.5 years lang.
2.5 years, yeah.
Sayang.
But the very eventful years. Very proud of those years.
If you were given the opportunity, would you have served longer?
Of course. I would have, wanted to finish the job, di ba? But it's not like that. Our system isn't like that. So, I think I appreciate it a lot that President Ramos did not insist on on staying longer than what the Constitution requires. Di ba?
Well,
He had a very real respect for the law, diba? Without being constrained by it. No? Yun yung maganda, yung may respect ka sa batas, pero hindi sabihin na, di ba, rigid ka, di ba? Kaya sa akin, palagi, his famous words for me are always, okay, I want you to solve this problem, I want you to do it in accordance with law, but I want you to solve it. Di ba? Maganda yung mandate na ganun because it means I have to do everything to solve the problem, but I have certain parameters to do it. Diba?
Claro.
Klaro yung
Okay.
Thank you.